Good afternoon and welcome to the Pirates Fan Forum here on DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcasting Network. I'm your host, Gary Morgan. With me, as always, is my good friend, Jim. How you doing, Jim?
How's it going, Gary?
Good, man. And it's always refreshing when we get to bring somebody new on the show. Every time we get to introduce the fans to another fan, I love it. So this week we've got a good one on. We got Douglas Ford on the show, and I'll probably call him Doug as we keep going, but let's be formal up front here. Doug, say hi to everybody.
Hey, guys, it's great to be with you. I'm looking forward to it. I'm a lifelong Pirates fan. 57 years old. I still remember the good times, and I can't let it go. So I keep hoping it's coming back. So hopefully we can discuss some of that, and hopefully it is coming back.
And Jim and I will try real hard to tramp down our jealousy over having watched winning baseball. And
Yep.
I think the first thing we have to touch on, is there anything to talk about, guys? Let's be blunt. Is there anything to talk about?
Some
stuff happened this week.
Yeah, I'm into all
everybody, thanks for stopping by.
January. Yeah,
So, the first thing we have to touch on, Jacob Stallings. It was by far the most emotional topic this week, period. There was just absolutely nothing that felt good about it. And, even if you liked the return, it hurt. So I guess, Jim, I'll start with you. Where did you come down on the Jacob Stallings thing? And I have to start with you because you've been the one repressing your feelings and thoughts on this subject, waiting for this show. I couldn't even get you to squeak anything out to me the other day when we were talking.
No, I was still mulling it over. That's one advantage of no longer doing any writing, is that I just kind of get to sit on it and think about it and let it marinate and wait for
I was not so fortunate. Yeah,
I know. And neither were some other people. So, it's one of those things where it at first seemed like just a real mystery to me. Just trying to, really figure out why. And, the thing I kept coming back to is, what would the motivation be for Sherrington and the Pirates? And it wasn't money. That wasn't the issue. I know some people want to go there. It's not that. It's not the player. They probably love Jacob Stallings. Everybody seems to. It wasn't his abilities. It wasn't that. So what motivates them? Well, we've been talking so long on these podcasts, Gary, about the pitching.
Yep.
And they need more arms. They can't just sit around and wait for arms. So they're trying to manufacture some of that with the few pieces they have left and trying to get that a little bit more up to snuff. And that's where I think it comes down is it was in a perfect world. They probably would have loved to have kept Jacob Stallings. At the end of the day, they still need some arms. They can't sit and wait around any longer. That's what I think it comes down to. Everybody tends to overcomplicate it. That's where I was at with it.
Right. They did get two arms back. They got Kyle Nicholas. He's a prospect, legit. He has work to do. He has two pitches. One of them's pretty electric. Problem is he can't hit where he wants to hit. He's got really awful control, and he needs to work on the third pitch. And, most people are saying he's profiling as a bullpen arm, which isn't the worst thing in the world. The world needs those as well. But Zach Thompson is really the guy this year that's going to get added to the rotation and everything. So, Doug, I guess my argument really is everything Jim said is true. They need pitching. But we as Pirate fans we pretend that that's the only way they could get it, is to go out and trade for these guys. A 28-year-old guy that just decided to bloom last year. why not just go out and buy a guy, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've sort of gone through the 5 stages of grief, with this trade. When I first saw it, I was just heartbroken. I've seen Stallings sort of as a Mike Matheny. I like, all right, he's our starting pitcher for a year or two. Then Henry Davis comes up, say, in June of 23, and he sort of, split starts with him for a couple of months or so, and then, the roles sort of change, and Henry Davis is starter, but Stallings is this good, solid backup. And, he's helping developing pitchers. He's going to help develop Henry Davis, that sort of thing. And then he, joins the coaching staff. I mean, that was sort of how I viewed him. But the more I think about it, what's our biggest complaint with the Pirates coaching staff is nobody gets better. None of the pitchers got better last year. Was Jacob Stallings really helping? I'm not saying he didn't. I'm just saying, but nobody took a step forward. It might be Oscar Marin's fault. It might be the individual pitcher's fault. But clearly, Jacob Stallings didn't, have Mitch Keller take a leap forward, so to speak. Perez, actually, he's got a whole bunch of young pitchers that he can say he helped develop there in Cleveland. A lot of those guys have turned out pretty good.
That's a great point. Yeah.
And then a lot of the, Thompson, if he was on the Pirates last year, he's our ace. I realize that, everything you look at about him, he doesn't look like he's all that great, but 3.24 ERA, everybody on the team had a 5.88.
No, and the thing is, his FIP is almost the same, which means he didn't luck into those numbers.
No, right. It's not luck or aberration. That's what he was. He was a 3.24 ERA pitcher, and man, we could use that. Is it sustainable? Was it first time around the league? That sort of thing. I don't know. But, again, he last year he would have been far and away our best pitcher.
Doug, first, it's refreshing as hell to hear somebody your age embrace some of these advanced stats.
That's what I was sitting there. Kind of threw me off a little.
I also think a lot of people, especially the older generation, me included, I'm borderline on this, and I'm pretty sure Jim is too. Look at that win-loss at 3-7, and they go, "Oh, he stinks."
Right? Come on. We could have a guy with an ERA. We could have DeGrom, and he might be 3-7 on. We don't score runs.
That's true. That's true.
If we don't score runs, so I embrace the analytics. To me, it's not either or, which, of course, the analytics tell a lot of interesting stuff. Now, does he do it in a game situation? Does he do it in a high-pressure situation? These are other things that factor in. But to me, it's another tool, and I laugh at the guys that sort of mock, analytics suck. 6'4", 250 pounds, that's an analytic, right? There's all these different things. Analytics in baseball in particular, but in sports as a whole. In football, we're measuring a quarterback's hand size. You know what I'm saying? But, I don't like advanced analytics. Come on. These numbers are there. Trends, pitching into the shift, all that sort of stuff. I love that. That makes sense to me. If you know go ahead.
Jim, I just learned something. I didn't realize I was supposed to be 6'4" to weigh 250. Now I'm a little bit taken aback by that. But
you still got time, Gary.
But let's talk about another angle on Jacob Stallings, because Doug touched on it a little bit. The pitching and helping the pitchers is something that a lot of people have attributed to Jake, and I think it's been a fair assessment that he's made some people a little more comfortable. But I personally, I wrote the other day, you have to reach all the way back to 2019 to really see that. 2019 is when he was supposed to be a backup catcher, and a lot of the starters were openly pining for him to be their personal catcher as opposed to, throwing to the starter. And I guess I didn't see as much of that in 2020 and 2021, but I kind of let it carry with it without seeing results. The biggest hit I think we're going to take from Jacob Stallings is losing his bat, because I don't care whether you believe in analytics or not. That dude was clutch.
Yeah.
What do you think, Jim?
Let me just touch on too. I think you made it's an interesting point. about the narrative of whether he was, helping the pitching staff as much as kind of it was made out to be. And sometimes it's very hard to measure that, right? I mean, so
of course, yeah.
There are some things you can point to that might indicate it, but we might have gotten a little carried away with that. And, that's not all his fault either, because sometimes it comes down to his, talent tends to speak the most in volume about how things are going to go. And,
I mean, my mom's going to get this probably more than anybody else, but you can't turn a Hydrox into an Oreo. I mean, it's not going to be as good a cookie. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's funny. You're so much more eloquent than I am, because the saying I always heard was, you can't pour syrup on crap and call it pancakes. So, that's the one that I remember from back in the day. But, yeah, so they'll miss his bat. But they got a guy that, if he can stay healthy, maybe he can replace some of the help that he was providing with the pitching staff. And I just think it goes back to Sherrington's just not comfortable with the state of the organization right now with the pitching, nor should he be. We're a couple big arm injuries away from a rebuild being in real jeopardy. And you know what?
Yeah, that's a great point right there. And I think now's a good time to go ahead and take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about Jacob Stallings and dive into a little bit more of the ramifications of that deal. All right, and we are back to the Pirates Fan Forum here on DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcasting Network. And Doug and Jim and I were just discussing really kind of our feelings on Jacob Stallings leaving. And I got to say, the Pirates didn't make us wait too long to make it feel a little better by bringing in Roberto Perez to replace him as I'd assume, the starting catcher. I mean... Although I would assume Cleveland thought he would be a starting catcher too. It just didn't work out that way. So he comes in as
Jake Taylor, but Jake Taylor's still out there. But
yeah, Jake Taylor's out there, but his knees, man, they're bum. So they got Roberto Perez, a 2-time Gold Glove winner, and the 2 times he won were the 2 times that Cleveland actually let him play a decent amount in a season. So when he plays well, at least defensively. Problem is, he hasn't been able to stay on the field. And he had one monster season that just makes everything else seem so out of whack. 2019, this dude had an insane season. I mean, insane. His batting average wasn't great. It's in the 230s, so be it. But he hit 24 home runs and won the Gold Glove. I mean, that was a great season.
Yep.
The problem is a lot of people will cherry pick that and think that's what they're going to get this year, and I just don't. So, I mean, Doug, Roberto Perez, does he make it feel any better for you? Because really, when you package him into this deal, what Sherrington did really is downgrade the catching position a little bit, bring in one pitcher that is a lock to be in this rotation this year, one that is a decent prospect, and another pretty good outfield prospect.
Yeah, I mean, the Perez signing does sort of ease the sting a little, but I mean, again, if he hits 150, I mean, your defense can't make up that much. I mean, dear Lord, it's like I'm sort of distressed that we're at Stephen Balko because he's our 5th best hitter on the team.
I didn't even think about the bat we lost there. You're right.
I mean, most of the time he pitched, I thought he should have been batting 5th. So, again, we're counting on guys like Cruz and Brian Hayes stepping forward, and that's great. But, man, it's going to be hard if he, if he hits 230 and gives us 10 home runs and plays that defense, fine. I'm good with it. But man, another, especially if Michael Perez is the backup, and we're probably going to have a DH. That's another position we have to fill with a sub. Based on our lineup, another sub 200 hitter. Jacob Stallings, if he's batting ninth or 10th now, you're living. It's fantastic. He had to bat first for us a lot of the time. That's just crazy.
If not cleanup.
Yeah. And again, he's a clutch guy. He's a decent player, but that's not where he should be in the lineup.
So Jim,
we're going to roll out Cole Tuckers and go ahead.
Oh, Cole Tucker you loved Cole Tucker. Don't even pretend you don't. Now, Jim, Roberto Perez. The guy, he has a really dark injury history. I'm worried about him staying healthy. If they go into the season with him and Michael Perez as the catching tandem, or I guess they have this Richie guy too that they signed to a minor league deal.
They did.
You're talking about a really, really non-offensive catching unit, right? You don't have anybody that's going to hit in that unit, I don't think. Are we looking at them potentially going out and getting another guy? Or do you think the $5 million investment kind of makes sure that's not going to happen?
I'm not so sure they're going to do anything else. One, you got to have some availability of some guys to pick from. And I think if you look around baseball, it was a thinner class of free agents and there wasn't much available. Yeah. So, that's why Stallings probably did get a little bit of interest from teams, aside from the fact that he is a very, very good defensive catcher. I don't want to undersell the guy too much simply because, look, Pirate fans should realize how hard it was for Jacob Stallings to win one Gold Glove. Yeah. And we never quite felt that was a lock until about 3/4 of the way through this season. That guy won two. I want people to understand how good of a defensive catcher he is. So, I think one of the interesting questions is are we as fans, do we overvalue things like leadership and players helping other players develop when it really comes down to is, yeah, those are nice things and teams will take it. But if there's other things that need accomplished, that's not going to stop anybody from getting moved. Right. Do we overvalue that? I think maybe we do.
I think you're probably right, but I think Roberto Perez is a decent replacement, at least from the glove perspective. I'm okay.
Definitely.
I am a little worried about his injury history, though. I think there's a good chance that we're going to wind up with Michael Perez playing about 110 games this year. And
it's a big
I got to be honest, I don't know I could deal. I don't know if I could deal with it.
It's a big risk. They are really, just from a positional availability, it's not going to kill them. I think we know what they're going to be, wins and losses. It's not going to kill them in that regard. But just from a day in and day out perspective, if they have to deal with him being hurt for half the season or something like that, yeah, it's going to be rough. You better get used to a lot of 7, 8, 9 again in that order where there's just no chance of anything good happening at the plate.
So let's talk about what this trade has done to the rotation, along with some other moves they've made, because I think the rotation probably got a little better. I really do. Zach Thompson, for what it's worth, I think showed some potential last year. 28 years old, late bloomer. I'm not sold on him being a future piece or anything, but I do think he can come in here and play pretty well for us. They got rid of Steven Brault. They got rid of Chad Kuhl. I was a little surprised about Steven Brault. Chad Kuhl, really, Jim, kind of went exactly as we thought it would. he didn't want to be in the bullpen. Ben Cherington wanted him in the bullpen. I mean, he directly said it in his press conference yesterday. That was why Chad wanted to start. We wanted to give him an opportunity to go start because it wasn't going to be here. So that rotation right now, you're looking at like Quintana and Thompson, which, hey, one's a question mark. Maybe he comes back and does something good. Maybe he doesn't. Worst case scenario, he's Trevor Cahill from the left side. Zach Thompson, Mitch Keller, right? Brubaker, probably. Bryce Wilson.
Yep.
Bryce Wilson.
There's your 5, right? That's all right. That sounds better than last year already.
I think off the top of your head, yeah. I mean, that's where you would start with things. Then you've got other guys like you still got Dylan Peters that I'm sure that probably could get a look. Who else am I missing, man? Yeah, Will Crow.
Yajure, Contreras. They got some options. But like you were saying though, and Doug, this is true. When you get into the depths, I think the reason that we continue to see them try to pile arms into this system is because if you're going to build entirely through the draft in your own system, you better have a good 15, 20 arms you really think could come up here and impact something, because chances are 5 of them are going to get hurt, 5 of them are going to stink out loud, and 5 of them just might make it.
It's actually my favorite thing. Oh, I'm sorry. But my favorite thing about Ben Cherington, my favorite thing about Cherington is, I think, and he would never admit this, but he acknowledges that he doesn't know anything. No general managers do, or you wouldn't need free agency, right? You get 60 rounds to the draft, you should be able to get 9 guys out of that. So now he's got 20 middle infielders and 15 outfielders, and now, like I said, we've got 10, 11 pitchers. You're right. There's going to be injuries. There's going to be just guys that can't do it. Just don't take to the coaching, whatever, and you just need bodies. And we might think it's going to be O'Neal Cruz, but it might be Cole Tucker. You don't know at this point. We're all excited about Lorenzo Contreras, and it might be Zach Thompson, the one that takes the big step forward. There's no predicting. We love to say, oh, this guy's got a future value of 70, and he's on this track. You guys remember Chad Hermanson, I'm sure. Walks on water.
Yep.
2 years of AAA with 30 home runs. We didn't rush him. We didn't do. He couldn't break 200. Couldn't hit a curveball.
I'll tell you what, though. Chad Hermanson, something they did to him. As soon as they brought him up to the majors, the hitting coach in the majors decided to change his swing. Like day one.
Yeah.
And he never got right again. Right. He could never get it out of his head what they had done to him, and it destroyed his career. Right. What a shame, honestly.
It is a shame because, we can't afford to screw up like that, right? The Yankees can make that mistake because they can solve it by the trade deadline. Not us. We have to develop. We have to cultivate our own players, and development has been such a huge issue the past decade, at least, if not further back.
Absolutely.
So again, you get nervous. It's like Oscar Maroon. We're all excited about him when we hired him, but I ain't seen anything yet. And now we've got.
No, that's a great point, though.
Hanging our hopes on.
As much as it's a show me year for Mitch Keller, it's a show me year for Oscar Maroon too, and I think as he continues to give him more options for that rotation and the bullpen, I think you start to see a little bit less of a wall for him to hide behind because he's got more talent to work with than he has in the past. I'm also hoping, like, coming off of a non-COVID year, I know we're still dealing with it, but the guys threw innings last year, so I'm hoping that pitching kind of starts to come back to the mean a little bit because, man, it drove me nuts last year. It's hard to evaluate people. How can you evaluate really what JT Brubaker did last year, Jim? Because you watch him pitch and he does really well at the beginning of the year. Middle of the year, he starts like elevating his off-speed stuff a little bit, and he's giving up some gopher balls. End of the year, dead arm, absolute dead arm. And before you want to go and like call him names and act like he should have manned up, Max Scherzer got the same problem last year, and he just got paid $43 million a year. So, I mean, like, and I'm not comparing the two as far as skill sets and whatnot, but how do you know what JT Brubaker is? I feel like a lot of fans are assuming they know what he is from last year, but I don't know if we've seen really what he could be yet.
No, it was kind of funny to. You almost felt bad for Brubaker at times last year. They just kept running him out there and letting him take his lumps in games. Man, like, you got to the point where even I, which sometimes, I feel like, hey, you got to let guys stay out there and work through some things and whatnot. But it became pretty repetitive there for a while with him with the home runs and them letting him. They were still trying to get 3, 4, 5 innings out of him. And I don't know that was the best way to do it. You're right. To me, it was dead arm. His velocity wasn't really affected, but there's other ways to have dead arm. If your pitches aren't moving,
snapping off the pitches right, and therefore they were finishing high, and he was getting taken deep on his off speed stuff, and that's dead arm. I'm sorry, that's what it is. And
a lot of people just think that that's just flat out velocity, but and most of the times it does come with that. But I think it's a prove it year for him. I think maybe they're just to the point where they know right now they don't have a lot of standout guys, so they're going to add as many guys into the mix as possible and see how many stand out during spring training and go from there. And who knows, maybe we see a 10-man starting rotation by the time it's all said and done.
Yeah, or maybe we see some guys finally mature. Bryce Will, if you think about it, they've got a collection of pitchers in this rotation right now. You got Quintana, who he's been injured. He had success a while ago, and here's his chance to prove it again, right? Got to imagine he's got about as short a leash as Trevor Cahill did last year. So we'll see what happens with that. You got Mitch Keller. Mitch Keller's got to figure it out this year. If Mitch Keller doesn't figure it out this year, it's time to be done. He's either a bullpen guy or he's done. That's really all there is to it. You've got JT Brubaker, late bloomer, injured on the way up, in his late 20s, right? So he's got to step up and do his thing, or bullpen probably for him too. You start talking about all the other guys like that, it's going to be a transformative year, I think, because Rowanzi's not going to wait down there in AAA for long before he starts pushing his way into the conversation. So you got to figure everybody has a little bit of an edge because unlike last year, there's somebody pushing this time.
There's some legitimate competition for some starting innings. And, if you can get 2 or 3 guys to take advantage of it, then you're in a better position than you were last year. So I think that's going to be the emphasis is they love to talk about competition, but I don't know that there was a ton of it simply because there wasn't really a lot of options. Well, I think you're going to see that. I think you're going to see that start to change this spring training, if we have a spring training, gentlemen.
Another segue.
See how I do that? See how I do that?
We have to talk about the impending doom of the lockout. I know so many people are frightened of it, but real quick before we go into another break here, I would like to just say one of the quotes that Charrington caught me with yesterday that kind of surprised me was that he would still like to add to the rotation before spring training. I honestly thought he was going to say, we'll try. We'll see what we can find. But for him to just straight up say that he wants to add to the rotation before spring training, that's encouraging. That means he's not sitting here resting on even those 5 I just said, which means, yeah, Mitch Keller, it's a prove it year, but he might have to prove it in spring. So I'm kind of curious to see how they approach this offseason. I don't think the record's going to be good, but I do like that they seem to be being a little more aggressive with getting some help in here for that particular situation.
It would be great to know what that meant. I don't think he would have answered the follow-up anyway, like, hey, what are we talking about?
It's definitely Kershaw. Here? It's Kershaw all day.
Of course. Yeah, it would have been nice to know that.
Yeah, he's good with that.
But anyways,
I would like to add some starting pitching. Who wouldn't?
He is. Oh man, he is a word salad. He really is. That guy will read you a book report off of a cliff note. I'll tell you what. Let's take another quick break, and when we come back, we're going to finish up just talking real quickly about the players that are gone and added. I think we have a couple more to discuss here, and yes, we'll touch on everybody's favorite subject, the lockout. All right, and we are back to the Pirates Fan Forum, and we have a few more players we have to touch on because this is such a busy week. And one of the first guys I wanted to touch on was I was a little surprised they cut Colin Moran, and I know that they signed Yoshi Tsutsugo, so I guess it's kind of a wash. Makes me feel like Ben Cherington either doesn't really think the DH is coming, or didn't think Colin Moran was good enough to be a DH even if it did. Which I can kind of buy because I've talked about this before, Doug. This guy was slower than Moses in January. It wasn't a guarantee he'd score on a double from second. So I felt like he was a clogger, like in the middle of the lineup. And maybe getting that out of there and introducing a little more speed with some of the youth they have maybe is a better option for that position, Maybe even somebody like a Rodolfo Castro could fill that role. He's got the good power, and maybe he doesn't have a position per se. It's somebody that could actually sit in there and not kill you. It's a good opportunity to improve something if we think Yoshi can handle first base, right? So how do you feel about that? Is that an even swap? Or, he's certainly not going to confuse you for Scoop over there.
Yeah, I'm glad we got Yoshi back. Your buddy Craig there depresses me when he tells you he can't hit. We know he hasn't been able to catch up to the fastball, but maybe he figured something out there toward the end of the season. He'll get enough at bats against guys that don't throw 98 that he should be able to produce some. I sort of think that Chavis will end up playing first base, and Yoshi will DH if they do in fact bring the DH in. And to me, that's just more of Cherington put his imprint on the team. Colin Moran wasn't his guy.
Makes sense.
Chavis is his guy. And how much, Colin Moran hit 8 home runs, 10 home runs last year. Chavis could do that easy enough. I don't see it being a big deal, but I was surprised. My first thought was like yours, was like maybe he doesn't think there's going to be a DH, but again, he's got a lot of bodies, and he's got to get them at bats. They all can't play second base, so.
As I thought about it more, Doug, I think I kind of came around to just thinking maybe he just didn't think Colin Moran was good enough, and in a way that's kind of refreshing because if you think about it. Neil Huntington never would have let go of a guy with 2 years of control left like that. He would have held on to the bitter end trying to make sure that he got something for him. But Craig always talks to me, Jim, about Yoshi. He's really not a fan of this signing, and I got to be honest. He's like an earworm. He gets in there a little bit, and I can't shake it, because he makes a lot of sense the way he talked about it.
Yeah,
Yoshi came in late in the season, and he did really, really well when he first came in because inexplicably everyone we faced was throwing him off speed stuff. And he was hammering it. Just hammering it. And all of a sudden, we start playing the Reds, and the Reds are like, hey, wait a minute. We got to throw this guy fastballs. That's the book on this guy. He can't hit fastballs. And they threw him fastballs. They picked the wrong guy to throw him fastballs, so he's plugging those out. But the second time we played the Reds, they caught on to him, and they pitched him, and they knew what they were doing, and he could not hit him. So I wonder if more exposure might not be a good thing for Yoshi. But at the same time, I kind of feel like at his worst, he's at least Colin Moran, right?
At the plate, maybe. Let's touch on Moran for a quick second before we do. I feel like we need some
it's easy to catch, so go ahead.
I feel like we need some in memoriam music playing here for some of these guys we're losing along the way. That's right. So if you've ever seen The Walking Dead, at the end of every show, they used to recap every zombie kill at the end of it and wave goodbye to them. So this is he was kind of a shambler though, so it's very appropriate if you think about it. Moved at the same speed, So
I wish he swung Lucille a little bit better, but okay.
Well, let's look at it. 4 seasons of Colin Moran. OPS of 747, 751, 797. Then last year, 724. I think most home runs hit in the season was 13, and that was in 2019. And he needed 503 plate appearances for those 13 home runs.
Right.
So, I think there's more than enough evidence to just show sometimes guys are what they are. And that pedigree never really showed up. I will give him credit. He played a pretty decent first base. I think putting Yoshi over there is maybe a clown car show waiting to happen, but we'll see how spring training goes, and maybe he can pick it up. That position's something that I like to pay a lot of attention to.
He already showed he can make the throws to second, which, as we've seen here in Pittsburgh time and again, is not a given.
Right.
So about 10 years when one could make that throw.
Absolutely. I mean, but here we are again. We're right back to first base as a question mark, right? And
always is.
I think as we wrap up the player portion of our discussion today, that the thing I really wanted to kind of get back around to is he's taken years away. Okay, Colin Moran was here for a couple more years if they just rode out the arbitration train. And Jacob Stallings was here for a few more years if they just rode out the arbitration train. Easily bridges to whoever's next coming up from the minors, right? Now we're sitting on 2 guys that are on 1-year contracts, Yoshi Tsutsugo and Roberto Perez. Neither of them are really going to be bridges to any players because the catching is too far away, and I suppose Mason Martin could be ready next year, but they thought so highly of him they didn't even protect him this year. So let's just kind of get that out of our head a little bit, right? I guess I like what Ben Cherington's done overall here, and I do understand the need to continue to acquire arms. I think that they could have spent a little bit of money to acquire some arms as opposed to doing it this way and saved themselves that bridge that they already had in-house. I'm a little concerned about it because there are 2 positions that they're not ready to replace, and there are 2 positions that they went ahead and tried to replace right away. To me, that was a little short-sighted. What do you think, Jim?
Meaning you're talking first base and catcher.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, it always comes back to money, doesn't it? Sometimes, I hate to say it. For whatever reason, they've just decided that they're not going to incorporate that aspect into it. And, fairly, that should receive some criticism because, Gary, you just touched on it. It doesn't have to be that way. The rebuild does not have to be that way.
Right.
So, look, maybe they've got some designs down the road of some of these position players and that they can play other positions. You talk about Henry Davis. Maybe they don't want to keep him behind the plate long term. I don't know. I'm just throwing things out there because I think you have to start throwing things out there because, like you said, there's a bit of a gap and no real replacement plan. So they're going to end up getting another high pick in next year's draft, and maybe Sherrington can work some magic again with some of the things he was able to do last year. But eventually you've got to get guys that are major league ready and ready to perform, and they're certainly not there.
No, I totally agree with that, and I think we're gonna touch now on the lockout because it's kind of hard to have a baseball show and not talk about the elephant in the room a little bit. And we've talked about the CBA a lot of times on this show, Jim. We probably bring it up every episode, but it's finally here. I mean, it's happening now. I thought it was funny that people were talking about it like it was some surprise boogeyman jumping out of the closet the other day. It's more like standing in Iceland and worrying that a glacier is going to hit you than anything. We knew it's been coming for a year and a half now. It's not a surprise. It was coming all along. It was always going to be a lockout because if it wasn't, it was going to be an embarrassing strike. So it's definitely was coming. Here it is. We can hope they fix the game, but man, it's nothing to fear. It's just nothing to fear. I see people losing their minds, and I talked about this with you guys off the air a little bit, but I think we've had about 8 shutdowns of either a lockdown or a strike. The game comes back. We only really lost one major portion of baseball, and that was in '94, and Doug, as you said earlier, the owners didn't get what they wanted out of that, right?
Right. I mean, that's the problem. I'm not afraid of missing games. We missed almost all of 2020. But what I'm afraid of is missing a bunch of games and coming back to the same circumstance. That, Max Scherzer will make more than our entire roster. And, we're not going to make any progress, anything that's going to make things a little more competitive. And, the Pirates are the wrong team to lead that charge, right? I mean, we need Tampa Bay and Oakland. Tampa Bay and Oakland are the ones that need to Milwaukee because at least they're trying. They're signing guys. They're doing different stuff. Miami. So, I hope that they can inspire, the larger markets. And the things that Steinbrenner said sounded good. Manfred actually said the word salary cap. So, hopefully they come back with something. They're not going to get everything. It's not, it's not going to be the best deal, but they've got to get something. They've got to get something that makes things a little more even. I don't care if the Pirates, they're never going to spend $200 million on the payroll, but 80 would be nice. Right? 80 gives us I'm not expecting this huge watershed moment. It's just a little help.
Marginal improvement is what you're saying. I completely agree with you there. I think that's an expectation we can manage. But Jim, when you look at the CBA, you see people online. They're losing their minds. I already watched people have all out brawls today on social media about billionaires versus millionaires. And what I really love more than anything else, and this is the untrained psychotherapist in me. I absolutely love watching this on social media, and you and I love getting into this in our text messages, Jim, stuff like this. I love watching people completely conflict themselves politically by jumping on a wrong track with this CBA negotiation because they want rich people to pay for everything, and yet they can't wrap their head around how what they're saying about the CBA is the exact opposite of what they've been preaching for months and months. I love it. I absolutely love it.
It's funny how that works, huh?
It really is. I love it so much, though. It's not really billionaires versus millionaires. And as I always say, it's really four sides involved here. There's the small markets, the big markets, the regular players, and the superstar players. And when all their goals align, I think we'll see some good things. But like Doug said, if they don't come back with any changes, what was this all about, right?
And it's the reason why they wasted no time instituting the lockout today so quickly. They're trying to give as much time as possible so as little bit of time is missed when it really starts to matter. It's the only way things get done is when you start putting firm deadlines on things and trying to get something done. So it sounds bad. If we're 2 months down the road and we're still having the same exact conversation, well, yeah, that's a little different. But just judging from what I'm seeing and the common sense behind it, I don't think either of these two sides want to miss any games, and they don't want to miss any revenue. They don't want to miss any earnings. I just don't think they want to. So we've all been through the 94 season. I know a lot of people that are younger may not have been, or that may not be old enough to remember it. And so look, it's early. They've got time. The rhetoric is going to be off the charts. It already started today. And there'll be very much some ups and downs. There'll be some times where I'm going to get really irritated by some of the stuff I'm reading. But
I hope it's stuff I'm writing that you're irritated by.
I will say I've just been a little bit surprised on the player side of things. Just kind of a little bit of the disregard for some of the things, the health of the game and who's getting what and when. It surprised me a little, but hey.
The only thing I've been taken by surprise really so far was the players wanting less revenue sharing. That didn't really make any sense to me at all. What? First of all, why would they care? Like, why would they care about that at all? That makes no sense whatsoever, why they would feel that way. And, I guess the theory would be like, well, if the Dodgers and Yankees aren't paying revenue sharing, well, they'll be able to give us more money, right? So, to me, that's almost as good as an admission that you think there's only a few teams that can really afford to do this. So let's just leave it as it is, right? Let's never try to fix it.
That's fine to a point, but they can't all play for the Dodgers and Yankees. That helps 4 or 5 guys each year, maybe gets a better contract, for each team. But, the Yankees have to play Kansas City. They have to play Baltimore, and don't they need players too? And if they're getting everybody on minimum contracts, that doesn't help the players. That helps, like I said, that helps. It's great for Garrett Cole and Max Scherzer, but it's not great for Jacob Stallings and Kevin Newman.
Right. But see, here's something interesting, and we don't want to get too much in the weeds about it, but I read something, and this is the mentality of the players, is that they believe that rising waters raise all boats. In other words, and I don't know if I said that term right, but that, okay, great, you'll pay all those guys there in those big markets, and that will affect the next level of players and raise their salaries in regard to it, and they're just not going to see things any other way. So that is literally how they view it, and that's tough to break through that line of thinking. So we'll see. But that's legitimately, that clicked with me today when I read that.
And I'll also say it's a lockout this time, which, as opposed to a strike, which is means the owners are really the ones controlling this. And they should be, because they're the ones that are trying to get big changes to take place. But the last time that they really grew a pair and tried to go for a cap back in 94, the government stepped in the way and stopped them and sent them back to the old CBA and put them back to work, both sides. So I guess what I would like to see this time is if the owners step up, I think there's precedent from other leagues that this is not wrong to pursue something like that. So if they do decide these players are being really, really insane, let's just go for it. I don't want anybody getting in the way. Get the cap done. I think the government probably will stay out of it this time. I do believe that's a lesson learned there. I don't see the same avenue shutting it down this time. I also don't see the players, the owners having the same gut they had last time. So I'm expecting minimal changes, just like Doug said, and I think that's about the best we can hope for. We'll see what happens, but baseball's out for a while, and the biggest question we keep getting, Jim, is how are we going to continue to do this show?
Easy.
It's super easy, right? I mean, this team's been around since the 1800s. There's topics galore. I could probably spend an entire show just talking about Willie Stargell if I want to. Sure, I didn't see him. But I can always have somebody like Doug on who did. And then we'll talk and talk and talk.
All day. My dog's name is Stargell.
Wow, there you go. So, Jim, any parting shots from you today, sir?
No, I would just encourage people to, take this thing one day at a time. Let's see where it ends up. Like I said, there's going to be some ups and downs, some things that are going to get us all riled up, and it'll make social media very interesting. But they've got 2-3 months to get it all hammered out. And let's just hope as Pirate fans, anything comes of it that benefits the Pirates, you have to take as a win, because I don't know that we can sit here and just wish for the stars.
I totally agree. How about you, Mr. Doug? Long-suffering fan you are.
Yeah, long-suffering. That's really, yeah. It's been a while, but I still have hope. I agree with Jim. I don't think the owners or the players want to miss too much time. So deadlines make deals. Hopefully they'll get something done. Hopefully there'll be some, as you said, marginal improvement. That we'll have Pirate baseball back in the spring, and we'll have 5 or 6 guys break through. So.
If not, I'm going to be watching an awful lot of minor league baseball, and I'm really excited about that because I do enjoy that as well. My parting shot really would be, don't be afraid, everybody. Honestly, God. And it's going to start looking a lot worse before it looks better. In fact, I would imagine sometime in January, it's going to look like they're about to completely destroy the game and set everything back, and we're going to have scab players and all, Don't worry about it. Nobody wants to lose baseball. Neither do the people that are making millions and millions of dollars by putting on games. They want to make money too. The players know they can't go to any other league in the world and make the kind of money they're making. The owners know that if they don't allow the players to make money, then they can't make any money. These aren't stupid people. They didn't make money or become successful athletes because they're idiots. They'll figure things out. They'll come together. And just like in daily life and social media, there are extremes on both sides. I highly encourage you to ignore them and stick to what is coming, which is baseball at some point. And we're going to be here the whole time because we don't really care. And we're probably going to make fun of both of them equally because we dislike both of them equally at times. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun, actually.
Ain't that the truth?
Yeah, maybe we'll do some fun top 10s, Jim.
Right? I'm cheering for Bob Netting. Are you kidding me?
Anyways, hey, it was a good episode, everybody, and I really appreciate the time. Listen to all the shows on the DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcasting Network. They're all good, especially podcasts on Fifth. I want to give a special shout out to this week. I really, really think that show has matured, and they had a killer show yesterday. Check it out if you get an opportunity. They had the Wheeling head coach on. I really, really enjoyed it. It was a good 45 minutes of hockey talk. So if you really like that and a different perspective on hockey that's not just X's and O's, I highly recommend you check it out. Good stuff. Without further ado, I'd say let's toss it over to our good buddy Ben.